You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. I want to thank you for coming to the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm here with Michael Katz from the Northeast Mississippi Tupelo Daily Journal. And, you know, Michael, an interesting thing is you are sitting in the middle of California with everything burning up all around you. It looks like a scene from the movie This Is the End, essentially. And just explain what's going on out there, man.
Yeah, it's timing has never been my forte. Of course, this is the week I decided to go home. It's when it's all on fire. But so I flew in on, I guess it was Tuesday, and that was when the day the winds really started. I thought my plane was going to tip over when we landed. It was like, I don't know how we got into LAX, but we did. And then like that night, there was 100-mile-an-hour winds and power lines started falling, and those embers were just moving. Some of the embers, from what I heard, like moved like a mile, like with the winds. And just I think yesterday I walked outside and it was just you couldn't see the sun. It was really scary. And we've been fortunate. We lost power for a bit. My sister had to evacuate her place, but it's okay. I think it was more out of precaution than anything. So all things considered, we're doing okay. But I know some people who have family that lost their homes, and it's just it's crazy. I grew up here. I've just never seen anything quite like this. California's on fire a lot. That's not super surprising. We have a lot of wildfires, but I think just the combination of the winds, we don't get that here. It's been pretty sobering to watch on the news, and hearing from friends and checking in to make sure they're okay.
Yeah, for people that are not from or know the geography around Los Angeles, can you let them know where like the Palisades are compared to like downtown Los Angeles, and what that is to the things that they know and that they're aware of?
Yeah, so like the Palisades is, I guess, northeast of LA. It's kind of on it's on hills, and that's always a dangerous proposition to live on in Los Angeles, because that's when there's a lot of brush up there. Now, obviously, no one ever expects to have this happen when they live there, but I would say it's probably like 15-ish, 20 miles-ish from like downtown LA. So it's far enough, but you can still see and smell everything. So that's obviously the biggest fire. I think it was like 20,000 something. But we got one right behind where I am in the Pasadena area, which is up to like 15,000. It's just it's crazy. It's scary, and we're very fortunate to not have gotten anywhere near the worst of it.
All right. Well, anyway, babe, be safe. Obviously, get back to Tupelo and all of that. Were you able to catch the Ole Miss Arkansas game on Wednesday?
I was following it. We had one of our other writers covering it for the most part, but I did see you do not go into to Arkansas and win by double digits very often. That was a really impressive. It was a really impressive game. After that Memphis game, I wasn't sure exactly what this team was. I thought I had a handle on it, and then I didn't. And these first two SEC games have been really impressive. I think that I think Ole Miss fans and players and coaches have to be pretty happy with what they've seen so far.
Yeah, and the thing that surprises everybody is they've out-rebounded Georgia and Arkansas, and rebounding has been the problem, and everybody was pointing to is like, if this Ole Miss team doesn't do what we think they're going to do, we can look back and point at this as what's going to be their undoing. And right now, they're playing extremely physical basketball, and the addition of Barnes in the backcourt, I think, has beefed up their rebounding. He's a guy I remember. You don't remember this because, heck, you were probably 4 when this was happening, if you were even alive. But when Ole Miss was really good back in 96 and 97, that time frame, They had a player on their basketball team named Jason Smith. He's a guy that shot 40% from the free throw line. He wasn't a scorer. All he did was just defend the crap out of it and rebound the basketball. And that's kind of what Barnes is providing to this Ole Miss basketball team.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, we knew that this wasn't going to be a huge team. Last year they were very big, and they did struggle with rebounding a little bit too last year, despite that size. I think that, and Beard has said it, that a lot of how they're going to have to rebound is it's going to be guards attacking the boards. It's going to be effort. It's going to be those sorts of things. And I think what's helping this team is that they are maybe not big, but they're versatile and everybody can do a little bit of everything. So when you sub guys out, you're not really missing a ton. You have guys who can do a lot of the same things. So and I think especially, as right now we're seeing, this is a team that plays really hard. And so when you have those sorts of things, it's you can make up for that lack of size with effort and athleticism. And I think that's what this team has done really well so far.
All right, when we come back, we'll ask Michael about the transfer portal and what's going on when he's getting back into North Mississippi, which, by the way, there's like 6 inches of snow on the ground right now. So there's just going around all over the place. But we'll talk to Michael about that as well. But first, I do want to let you know about our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Are you tired of the endless waiting, wondering, and worrying about your taxes? Well, now that is a thing of the past. You see, taxes don't need to be complicated or stressful. TurboTax is here to change the game by matching you with a TurboTax expert who can get to work on your return right away. No more waiting on answers. No more wondering if you're missing out on deductions. Whether got one form or 20 TurboTax experts give you taxes their undivided attention while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on what really matters. You won't even have to lift a finger, but you'll get the peace of mind knowing that your taxes are being handled by the pros. So ready for stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed? Head over to TurboTax.com today and get matched with your expert who's ready to take your taxes off your plate so you can focus on your day. It's only available with the TurboTax Live full service. They have real-time updates only available with the iOS mobile app, and see guarantee details at turbotax.com/guarantees. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 back, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need in order to place live bets and same-game parlays and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make the playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Michael Katz coming back from the Northeast Mississippi Tupelo Daily Journal. And this has been a week on the transfer portal. You go off to California and everything happens. It seems like there's a transfer portal commitment every day. Ole Miss basketball is at next level. Coach Yo and the women's team's doing well. You're going to walk back into a busy situation.
Yeah, it's, again, timing has never been my forte. Seriously, it's like every time I look down at my phone, it's something new, a new commitment, a couple like literally in the last hour. I think it's been so. It's been nice to get away from it for a little bit, but I think it's all gonna hit me at once when I get back.
Yeah, when are you getting back to Tupelo?
Well, allegedly Monday, but there's supposed to be another wind thing on Monday. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, so you'll be back whenever you get back. I remember,
yes.
As far as like traveling on disaster and all that, I was in DC visiting my wife on 9/11. And my sister was visiting me, and she was going to fly out of Dulles Airport out of DC. That morning was her flight to head back to Mississippi. Obviously, there were no flights that day. So they ended up sleeping on the floor in my wife's barracks room for 3 days.
Goodness.
That's the way it was. So yes, traveling during and after disaster, Yes, I understand that.
Well, and of course it's the weather's beautiful back in Mississippi right now as well in terms of the roads and stuff. So
Hey,
yeah, it's one extreme to the other right now.
hey, down here in Central Florida, it's sunny and 70. So,
And
but it's always sunny and 70.
yes, yes.
So the transfer portal going on. What are your thoughts? Let's say we talked about this basketball program. What are your thoughts on the transfer portal that you think is coming up? Because I think what needs to happen is a defensive run. I think that's the last step in this transfer portal class.
Yeah, I think the thing, at least from my perspective, that's been interesting, and and obviously comparing it to last season's transfer portal class is sort of unfair because like when that class happened, you saw names and you were like, these are going to be immediate superstars. Like you saw Walter Nolan, you saw Princely, even Trey Amos, like you were like, these are guys who are going to be absolute difference makers the second they come on campus. And obviously, to varying extents, they were. Walter Nolan's a first-round pick and All-American. Princely was one of the best pass rushers in the country, and he didn't even play the entire season because of some injuries. I mean, all those guys you knew were going to make an impact. I think what's interesting with this class is there's talent, obviously, and the guys either were highly regarded coming out of high school or they're highly regarded, now in the portal. But I don't know if we necessarily have those guys who you can like point at and say those are instant day one difference makers the way that we could last year. And again, I don't know if it's fair to do that, but I think that class last year was just so special in terms of high level impact guys. And that's not to say this group isn't talented. They're very talented. I mean, the stars and the ratings and stuff tell that story. But I think it might be a little bit of a different group in terms of who's the immediate superstar. I don't know if we have that answer quite yet.
One thing that's interesting, because I agree with you entirely. There is no Walter Nolan in this transfer portal class. There is no Princely Amon-Mielen, or the only thing close to a Trey Amos is in this class, and that is if for some reason Thaddeus Dixon is able to, they bring him in and get that done. He can provide a lot of stuff. He's also a junior college guy as well. So you might be able to get 3 years out of Thaddeus Dixon if he comes on campus. But the point is, this year, the studs, the big name players, I think it's supposed to be the high school players. Mm-hmm. Whenever you're looking at building, Suntaryn Perkins is supposed to be this year's Princely Amon-Mielen. You look at Jam Brown and Xavion Harris and those guys. They need somebody to step up and be the guy that they're supposed to be. And Jam Brown was a freshman All-American. Like I said, that Trey Amos position, that's the only one where there's kind of a like for like in the portal. So I'm not saying this team and this defense specifically is going to look like it did in 24. It's probably not. But I don't think it's as dire looking at the portal and not having those Walter Nolans and all that as people are kind of making on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think if anything, it probably means they feel pretty good about what they already have in terms of their last few recruiting classes. Again, guys like Cam Franklin and Eccles and all those sorts of guys. And Xavier Harris has played really, really well in his 3 years at Ole Miss. Jam Brown, like you mentioned, you have guys that I think you have to imagine they feel pretty good about. Otherwise, maybe they would have gone a little bit harder. And again, it's different because every portal group is different. It feels like there hasn't been like as high level of a guy as a Walter Nolan in the portal this year. And maybe that's just naivety on my part, but it seemed like last year there were a bunch of like 5-star guys who were instant, everybody knew were superstars. It seems like a little bit of a different group this year. But again, Ole Miss just brought in their best high school recruiting class under Lane Kiffin, and they had another really good one the year before. And again, Suntaryn Perkins was in the one the year before. So, if anything, I think that it probably means they feel good about what they've been doing, outside the portal, which is kind of different because that's when everyone talks about the portal king. I think in a perfect world, this is how you're building the team anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. And also just, for the reason these players aren't in the portal is because of rev share. So everybody is counting $20 million worth of a kitty, which means the offers are going up absolutely everywhere. We have to reestablish a new market all over again. One was just starting to happen, but I think that is what's going on this year.
Yeah, no, it's just the market's just like crazy right now. I mean, the Carson Beck stuff that's been happening the last couple of days, where the rumors are he's getting $4 million for 1 year at Miami. I thought he was gone. He had entered the draft a couple weeks ago. It's if you are going to be not a top 10 pick, going back to school is not the worst idea right now. If you're a college superstar, make some money.
Yeah. But the problem is, if you don't get into the transfer portal, like let's say Ole Miss is beyond the transfer portal, because I do not think the spring transfer portal window is even that good.
No.
Traditionally, I can count on one hand in 4 years the number of players that have hit in that period, and most of those are multiple year transfers that they hit in the second year. So I'm not going to really focus on the late transfer portal window, and I'm not going to focus on players that get into the late transfer portal window. But you're right. It would have made sense for players to just hop in on December 20th just to kind of keep their space in there, do what they had to do, and see what happened.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if I think I saw something that like basically Carson Beck is going to make as much as Will Levis did, because Will Levis is like, his salary is like $950,000 or whatever, and he had like a $3.2 million signing bonus. So he's basically making as much as a second round draft pick would have, and he has a chance to up his stock again because he did have a little bit of an up and down year. If you're making $4 million and then you can turn yourself back into a top 10 pick, it's a no brainer.
That makes sense, because Carson Beck kind of is what Will Levis is. I mean, they're kind of the same guy.
You never know what you're getting. Sometimes it's the best quarterback in the country, and sometimes it's an absolute disaster.
All right, Michael, what do you got going on this week? I know you're on the road until next week. Tell people what they can find out at the Daily Journal.
Yeah, so we've been I've been kind of wrapping up the football season with leftover Gator Bowl stuff. There's tons of stuff coming from that. It was really cool to talk to Jackson Dart and Jordan Watkins one last time. Those are guys who you want speaking about the program, the future of the program, because they know better than anybody where it was and where it's going. So we got some really good stuff from them after the game. Obviously, we got some basketball coverage. I am not on the basketball coverage. We have people on the ground there, assuming they can get to Oxford in the next couple of days. But we got all that covered, and then I'll hopefully be back in town early next week and be back in person for all of it.
Okay, after the Gator Bowl, did your headline writers actually do you a solid and do the JAXSONville on there in the headline?
No, I was actually that would have. I should have probably pointed that out. But I did appreciate that the Jags mascot Jackson DeVille is spelled the same way, and I was like, man, sometimes it's meant to be.
Yeah,
Jackson.
Yeah, pretty good stuff. Anyway, thank you, Michael. Be safe heading back to Mississippi, and everybody's going to be thinking about you and your family in California while this is going on, man. So take care.
Appreciate you, buddy.
All right, man.